Hey guys, great to see everybody today. We're going to do a quick little informational video on the Opium Wars. And basically, the Opium Wars facts are China did not want any European involvement in trade or any European influence, so the Chinese basically had China close to Europeans. The British were buying so much tea that the British kept spending money in China and the Chinese bought nothing in return. This is not a favorable balance of trade. So the British were looking for a product that the Chinese would buy, that the Chinese couldn't refuse. So the British found that in India and Afghanistan, opium grew, and it was a highly addictive drug. And it came from the poppy plant right here. And if you look, here's a poppy plant, and you can see if you cut the side of the poppy plant with a razor, the sap will drip out. And then that sap will be turned into heroin. So the British would bring this opium to China. The Chinese people would smoke it, and the Queen of China wanted opium out of China. So she went to war. And unfortunately, the Chinese were still fighting with old fashioned weapons. The British had a modern military and were able to easily defeat the Chinese during the Opium War. So here's an example. Here's a painting of an opium den in China. And if you notice, these people are getting high, they're smoking opium. Here's an opium pipe right here. Here's another opium pipe. And when people were high on opium, they weren't doing anything productive. And the Chinese emperor wanted an end to this. And she even wrote a letter to the Queen of England saying, why do you allow your merchants to bring opium in China when it is illegal to have opium in England? And the British kept bringing it. And there are actually two opium wars. Here's a photograph of two people smoking opium in China. They're so high, they're just laying there. They've got their opium pipe, they'll heat it up and they'll smoke the opium, getting high. Now, the British, they didn't mess around. They brought a whole invasion fleet to China, all right? And they had steamships, as you can see. And they had thousands and thousands of soldiers basically landed to attack the Chinese because they wanted their right to sell opium in China and make money. Here's a artist rendition of some of the fighting. The British were fighting with rifles and bayonets. The Chinese did have some rifles, but primarily they're using outdated swords and outdated weapons. The British military technology was superior, so they're able to defeat a larger Chinese military. Here's another one, fighting for the port. This is showing, Chinese with more traditional weapons. Here's a sword. Here's a bow with an arrow fighting against the British. Notice the British have bayonets on their weapons. They've got rifles. There's a lot of explosions going on. The fighting was extremely violent, and many, many people died. And it was all over the British's right to sell opium, a highly addictive drug. Here's another picture showing a British fort. Now, this was like the ultimate prize. When the British won, they claimed Hong Kong, and Hong Kong was a very valuable port city in China, and the British are going to hold on to Hong Kong for many, many years. Okay, and Hong Kong was one of the most productive trade areas, and the British are going to get Hong Kong until recently when the British finally gave Hong Kong back. Take a look right here. Here's China. Here's Hong Kong. Right there, it was a huge port, and this is Hong Kong blown up. Notice it's like a peninsula. Look at all these bays. They were great for trade. This whole area was given or taken by the British until 1997. They finally gave it back. And this was very, very productive, this area right off the coast of China. Now, China owns Hong Kong, and China has not turned Hong Kong communist. China has kept Hong Kong like capitalist. Now, here's a picture of an opium field in Afghanistan today in Helmand province. This is a U.S. Marine right here. Here's some Afghan people, and basically